Okay, thank you. And welcome everyone to the Cohasset Harbor Infrastructure Planning Working Group meeting. The first thing I'd like to do is to call a roll call for CHIP members. I will call your name, and if you're here, please say aye for the recording. George Baumgarten.
Here.
Mike Sardina.
Here.
Tim Davis is here. Our harbor master is an ex officio member, but we have a quorum. So I suggest we start, although I did ask Lori to give an update on a number of the projects going on in the harbor. So we'll defer that until she comes on board. Perhaps what we can do is start by, George, if you wouldn't mind giving a synopsis of the climate resilience meeting we had and what the plans are going forward.
Sure, Tim. Thank you. And also, we want to just review the minutes of prior meetings so I can get them posted as well, Tim. We can do that after this.
Okay. Yeah.
So Lisa Hewitt-Dick and I of the Cohasset Harbor Committee are co-leading an initiative called Cohasset Harbor Climate Resilience Initiative. The target is three public forums over a period of several months. We started discussing this, actually launched the initiative back in October, did a lot of planning, and which resulted in our first forum on January 25th via Zoom. From 7 to 8:30. We had several really good presenters. The topic was, actually I don't have it in front of me, but what would happen to, what is the potential challenge to Cohasset Harbor with a significant weather event. And as part of that meeting, we went through what that is. I see Tom Bell has joined. Hi, Tom. Tom was one of the presenters, as well as Mark Borelli from the Center for Coastal Research, and then Jack Buckley as well. The upshot of that is we had a really good kickoff, January 25th. Over 70 people attended via Zoom. Really good feedback afterwards, and I think a number of people have heard from both the select board members who were in attendance, as well as members of the public who were pretty excited about what was seen. The result of this is first forum in January. Our second forum, working again with Lauren Lind and Chris Senior, is targeted for, we have a couple of dates we're working with on April 6th or April 11th. The topic of that will be town officials and certain town committee representatives speaking about the infrastructure of Cohasset that is located near the harbor and potentially vulnerable to major weather events. We are lining up those speakers now. We expect to have that planned and ready to launch. So we're talking about 4 to 5 weeks. Well, 5 to 6 weeks from now, we'll have our next seminar. Third seminar on that, which is planned, is to have some of our elected officials at the state level give an update on funding opportunities and sort of the sense of the legislature relative to climate change and funding of initiatives at the local level around that. So we're in a good space. We're moving forward with that. The great thing is, if for anybody who didn't get a chance to see that seminar, it's very easily viewed by going on the cohassetmass.org, looking at the Cohasset Harbor Committee page, and there's a good description of all the speakers and a link to the video of the webinar. So that's out there. Tim, that's my synopsis. Are there questions from folks gathered here today about that?
If anybody has a question, you've got a a device on your screen that you can raise your hand. Please do if you have any questions. I see somebody joined by phone. Is that Lori?
I believe that's Lori.
Lori, are you with us? Well,
Yeah, I'm here.
oh, you are here. Okay. Can you give us a brief update on the various projects in the harbor that you're involved in, starting with Parker Avenue?
Okay, the boat ramp, due to COVID issues and supply chain issues, has been delayed till November 1. There was no way they were going to get it done in time for this year's boating season.
Now, I understand, Lori, that I understand that the contractor will hold the price, however, so we don't have price inflation while we're waiting.
That is being worked out now.
Being worked out.
But yes, that's the plan, that they hold the price.
Okay. Okay, that's what Michelle assured me, that they would do that. Okay. Great.
The contract has not been signed yet in regards to that.
Okay. Okay. How about the town landing, town dock?
Government Island Dock, is that what you're talking about?
Well, I was talking about what is it, Lewis Wharf or Lawrence Wharf?
Oh, conveyor. I'm waiting to hear back from the maker of the conveyor with a new bid, a new amount of money, because the price he gave us has expired and he has to redo it.
What was
and I
his
hope to
issue?
hear from him shortly.
What was his issue? Why could he not deliver?
Supply chain problems, but now they've loosened up, and he just has to give us a new price.
Do you think it'll be ready for the season this summer?
I would hope so, but I'm not going to guarantee anything.
Of course not. Okay.
I mean, I don't think anybody can guarantee anything.
No.
You know, the boat ramp was supposed to be done. It was supposed to be finished
No, I know
in
that.
3 weeks, and they weren't even going to start until March. So, you know, to guarantee it, I can't.
No, of course you can't guarantee it. It would be nice if it were to happen, but of course you can't guarantee it. Okay. Government Island.
The fishermen are, you know, we had that meeting last night. There's a couple things they would like, you know, more docks on the northeast side, which we had discussed at our last meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And Carlos is gonna, I guess, do up some new sketches
Mm-hmm.
of what it'll all look like.
One of the things that
according
came
to
up,
last night's meeting.
yeah, one of the things that came up, and Lori, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, is the bait storage. That seems to be of great interest to the fishermen, to have a bait storage nearby the dock. What are your thoughts on that?
That becomes a logistical nightmare between maintenance and keeping it clean and having to pump the refuse, the drippings, up into the sewer system, if the sewer system will even take it. Who gets in there? Is it done by lottery? I think it would be a real problem. I talked to the harbor master, and he said it's a nightmare over there.
It's a nightmare over there. Okay. Does any harbor do it successfully that you're aware of?
No, because very few harbors do that. The only reason Hull has one, it goes back like 30 years.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So the commercial fishermen then, if they are on their own for storing bait, and basically is what they're doing now, is trying to find a place either on their own property or somebody else's to store bait. Is that generally what the standard operating procedure is for commercial fishing?
Yes, it is.
Mhm. Okay. Anything more on dredging, Lori?
I'm in the middle of trying to fill out a report for Army Corps. So we can start the process, but I think, you're talking years to get dredging. And the dredging report, there is a couple of areas in the channel that has filled in a bit. The harbor has stayed basically constant from the last dredging back, 6 years ago,
Mhm.
7 years ago.
Okay.
The
So you
depths
think-
have remained basically the same.
You think it'll be years before we get any dredging in the channel?
Yes, because you have to go through, first the Army Corps has to find the funds to do it. Then they've got to take all sorts of test borings. And then they got to find more funds and to do the actual dredging. The test borings that were done back 10 years ago are no longer usable. They're not recent enough.
Mhm. Okay.
And it has really the only area that is really starting to show any loss of depth is by Whitehead, by number 10.
So is
Right at the building.
there any way to just dredge that area?
No, because you still have to do the testing. And we still have to get Army Corps to get on, to be on board.
We can't do it without Army Corps?
No.
No.
They are really tightening up their rules on people doing it outside of the Army Corps decision-making process, I guess you'd say.
Hmm.
And we still have to go through all the testing and stuff, and the testing is like $250,000
Hmm.
for the sampling.
Okay. Okay. Any questions so far from the audience? In terms of the breakwater renovation and improvement that's on the agenda here, it's not clear after we heard from the experts at the climate resilience meeting we had that the breakwater really needs it, but what we should be doing, I believe, is to have an engineering study done in conjunction with the infrastructure of the whole harbor. So one of the things we've been trying to do is to figure out jurisdiction for the breakwater. And it's really quite interesting where that line goes. I don't want to get into it now, but it's very different than what I expected it to be. So as we go through the climate resilience initiative, we will look at what we need to do in terms of an engineering study to for all of the infrastructure of the harbor. Lisa is not with us, so she can't give a progress report on governance. I will give a brief update on aquaculture. There are a couple of things that are going on in terms of aquaculture. The most exciting is that we have a new member of the Cohasset Police Department. Josh Kimball is our natural resources officer. He has a depth of experience in aquaculture and in harbors, and he, I believe, will be joining the team, if you will, as either the shellfish constable or assistant shellfish constable. Chris Senior has told me he's going to move that along. So it would be terrific, Josh. If you haven't met him, is a terrific fellow. Spoke last night at the Rotary. Josh is going to be a really great addition to this community. The one thing you don't want to do when you're around Josh is litter. The only thing that will get you incarcerated by Josh Kimball is if he sees you littering, then you're in trouble. But anyway, so that's exciting. I look forward to working with Josh, and I think you'll all enjoy working with him as well. We still do not have a quorum for the Harbor Committee. So are there any other issues that George, you or Mike would like to bring up or discuss?
Yeah, Tim. The Captain's Walk survey, I thought it might be useful just to bring up the status of that and next steps.
Sure.
And maybe ask Lauren Lind, who I think had the survey sponsored, if you could just give a status of what happened, and then maybe ask, have a discussion between me and Mike Sardina about what we see as next steps. But Lauren, would you be able to comment on the status of that?
Sure. So the scope of work that we had worked with Cavanaro Consulting to do is the survey of the remaining portion of the Captain's Walk. We had asked for this information so that we can have survey level accurate data for any sort of upcoming projects, whether it be infrastructure, talking about sidewalk improvements. All of this information would be necessary to know the exact boundaries of the town right of way, where private property is, et cetera. So we have received that information from John Cavanaro, and I can, if it's helpful, I can pull it up if that's useful. You see what we're talking about. So this is the survey plan. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
So this, just to give you a quick, my PDF viewer is slow today. All right, here we go. So it just goes through the sections of the roadway. It breaks it down into 3 sections from Elm, Summer, Border Street, wrapping around the harbor area. If we're moving towards, sort of, if you imagine we're moving towards Government Island, it gives you that complete picture. So that's what we have, the information there. And then that's the completed scope of work for this portion of the project. I'll pause there and let George and or Mike Sardina fill you in on where we're going from here.
So I'll start, maybe Mike, if you'd like to add on. This survey was a result of work that we started back in probably spring and summer of last year, where we were looking again with Jackie Dormitzer. Thank you for attending here, Jackie. Looking at what the Cohasset Historical Society had done for Captain's Walk back in the 80s and 90s. And also, looking at the opportunity potentially for improvement of the walkway along the harbor, both for to serve the objectives of the municipal harbor plan, as well as to connect to any improvements that happen as a result of the Elm Street corridor. And so the town did sponsor the survey with Cavanaro. We've seen it. And Mike, I'm wondering if I could ask you just to say, maybe the brief, you've looked at it and what you see as next steps in terms of maybe a dedicated meeting to review it.
Thanks, George. Yeah, so I've looked at the survey and I've looked at other preliminary information that I think warrants a dedicated meeting for the Captain's Walk potential as town improvements, not so much as Captain's Walk as a historical feature relative to the existing signage, but we know that we're going to be incorporating all that at some point. But the broader issue of the Captain's Walk is fraught with opportunities and constraints. And I've analyzed all that stuff, and it's graphically available for us to represent to those who wish to attend as a preliminary look at what we have as existing conditions and how those existing conditions might be considered relative to having a captain's walk, which starts actually with what are the objectives of the captain's walk as a physical walk. And once we have a consensus on what the captain's walk is, as a primary route from basically the Cove all the way to Government Island, and along that route we have representations of the historic markers that the Historic Society has already got in place, but have started to look at it in terms of modifications. Then we can put all that together as components, kit parts. But the bigger issue is, what is the captain's walk? How is it influenced by parking? How is it influenced by the existing road widths? How is it existed by seawall heights? How is it influenced by adjacent property ownership, both public and private, etc.? So that's what I think we need to have a dedicated meeting to go through all that. It would take at least an hour to go through it. George and I have talked about it. I've shown it to George, so we know that he knows what this is all potentially about.
Well, I'll share. Mike and I did review it. Mike has done some very nice work colorizing the some of the graphics that Kevin and I are prepared to make it very easy to view. But I would just second the thought that there's really helpful to have the precision of the survey. Definitely identifies some opportunities, but some challenges as well to try and create an improved walkway along the harbor. But I think a dedicated meeting would be key.
When do you think you'd be ready for that?
It's within a couple of weeks.
Okay. Have we gotten to the point where we can have in-person meetings, Lauren?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
No, I may have an update later this month, but at this point we're planning to remain virtual at least through the month of March, and we have to discuss internally when we plan to transition once we're allowed to do so.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll have to do that that first meeting anyway in the Captain's Walk virtually, but certainly being in the room looking at and pointing to drawings and various issues is very helpful and hard to do by Zoom.
Yeah, it's all been scanned, so it's not ideal to do it by Zoom, but it has been scanned so that we could do it by Zoom if that was desired.
Okay, well, we
could do it by Zoom initially, and then do it as a follow-up again on a larger format down at Walcott or something.
That's what I was thinking of. Is, let's pick a time in a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and pick a time to do it, and let's move that along. That's great. Jackie, do you have any comments about where we're going with this?
Jackie, I believe you're speaking.
I've got it now. Thanks. Okay. George very kindly forwarded me John Cavanero's survey, which it was a little hard for me to see it as a whole. So that was a problem. So I'm looking forward to seeing Mike's colorized version. I think that would be very helpful. Is that available now, Mike?
It's not. I've looked everywhere.
It's best not to be out there before it gets discussed, because it's better to discuss it and for people to understand it, then it should go out rather than being out there ahead of time.
Okay.
It's just a bunch of data, etc. on these drawings. So
okay. I'm looking forward to that, because I really need to know what the surfaces are that are the historical commission, not society, because historical commission's signs will go on. So that's really what I'm mostly interested. We can't go forward until we know whether it's going to be on a hard surface or on grass or whatever. So, but you know, and I don't really want to, I can't order anything until we know for sure. And I suppose we have to wait to find out what Tom Sullivan wants to do with the new inn that he's going to construct, and exactly what Cohasset Hospitality Partners plan on their end for a walkway. So I think, you know, it's in abeyance right now, but I'm looking forward to seeing these plans develop. And I'm certainly, I hope to be able to sit down with this group when you discuss the Captain's Walk in a couple of 2 or 3 weeks.
Great.
I
And
just
I'll-
want to,
thank you.
I just want to make sure that this discussion, this initial discussion is about analysis. It doesn't have anything to do with final design. It doesn't have anything to do with the detail of surfaces as you're bringing into the conversation. So at this point, there are a number of items that become issues with respect to what is the Captain's Walk as a physical walk.
Right.
And so we have to get all that stuff sort of sorted out thoughtfully, and it takes into account big issues like resiliency and infrastructure and seawalls and things that are, you know, that are more holistic relative to what is the Captain's Walk, because it has all of those adjacencies, and those adjacencies influence it and other things. So I think, Jackie, to be perfectly honest with you, don't hold your breath about what the surfaces are, because this is going to take a while to get sorted out. What we're doing is we're just what I think Chip is doing is trying to bring forward maybe analysis and maybe ideas, but at some point the town is going to actually probably hire a consultant to actually put all this stuff into some sort of process and or construction drawings. And there may be many processes here that are going to influence this. And some of those processes may have their own consultants required. I don't know, but it starts with understanding and deciding what is the Captain's Walk as a walk, not as a markers system for historical events. It's really what is the physical sidewalk, and the markers go along the system. So to create the walk, you know what's down there now. How do you make that better? How do you make it more serviceable? How do you make it more consistent? How do you make it tie to the Elm Street improvements? All these things are part of the big picture. And then there's the resiliency thing that may influence part of it too. So we just want to put all these things out there. George and I have talked about this. We just want to put it out there. So those people that are interested could start chewing on this, and starting with the powers that be in town, start to discuss how do we move forward on all these different things that might be part of the improvement of our shoreline from basically Government Island all the way around to the Oaks. Okay.
The other thing too that I'll add is that I'm trying to keep Tom Sullivan and Eamon O'Mara, who is his consultant, engaged in this conversation, so that whatever they do with the Mill River facility that Jackie mentioned, or Atlantica, takes into consideration that the Captain's Walk will go through those properties.
Right.
At one point, I think you've heard me say that Tom Sullivan offered to put a pedestrian bridge from Mill River to Government Island as part of the Captain's Walk. So we can keep that in mind. I don't know whether that ultimately is going to make sense, but that at one point years ago in a harbor plan passed, that was drawn in as a pedestrian bridge there. So all these things are possible, and you're right, Mike, it takes into consideration so many other moving parts that all have to work together here. And certainly we'll do our best to include everybody who has an interest. I'll mention one interest group that has started a conversation, and that's a citizens parking group that is very interested and concerned about the parking situation around the harbor and in the village. So they will be engaged at some point, both with the Captain's Walk and how do we integrate parking with the Captain's Walk so that parking and pedestrians can coexist in happy harmony. So, but anyway, lots going on. Those are all good things. Thanks very much, George and Mike, for doing that. Any other questions?
Yeah,
One-
Tim, I had
yeah.
a question.
Sure, Adam.
Has it ever been discussed for the town to buy the lot of land across from Margin Street for harbor parking?
Yes,
It's owned by the hospitality group?
yes. And they would love to do that. I just frankly haven't had the bandwidth to follow that up with, but they know that that we're interested in doing something there. I think the neighbors are against having a parking lot there.
Well, I mean, of course they would be, but it's not their, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not their land.
I understand that, Adam, but as you know, you can't just do things. You have to take all of those things into consideration.
Well,
so
it seems like the town has been very flexible in trying to design the whole, corridor there with, extending the land out and redesigning that intersection. Why couldn't this be part of that conversation too?
You're right. Let me just say this. I will put some time in on it. I'll discuss it. I know that that George and Ted have offered to sell that. They would like to sell it. It is zoned as a building site. However, it is also in the floodplain. So whoever were to try to build something there would have difficulty. So I will take that up, Adam. It's a very valid point. It would be one of the things I'd like to have happen is to have it not just a parking lot, but have it be the one of the possible entrances to the Captain's Walk, where there might be some low buildings for storage of kayaks, canoes, and so forth. It might have various other amenities on it. But again, parking is critical, and that's, I'd love to have that as a really nicely designed and landscaped parking area. So I will take that up. If you don't hear from me in a little while, Adam, give me a nudge, and I'll keep at it. Maybe I'll start a committee, Adam, and put you on it. How about that?
Not a question. Not a resident question.
That's all right. I'll take your advice and counsel anyway. Okay. Anything else? Yes, Tom.
Yeah, Adam, could you clarify which parcel you're speaking about?
It's between Stockbridge. It's
right across from the dock on
Oh yeah, okay. Basically the only open space there is there, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that before you get too carried away with your plans here, you should really look at what kind of issues would come up in front of Concom.
Well, I mean,
you're not going to be able to add any impervious surface there.
So I am personally friendly with the two abutters there. I obviously wish them well, but I feel like Cohasset has missed a lot of opportunities to own land around the harbor, and this might be the last chance for a long time for them to have some more land surrounding the harbor and give town people access to the harbor. It doesn't, I mean, it can be a surface that drains, it doesn't have to be a hard top. It could be half a parking lot. The other half could be recreational. I mean, put picnic benches there so the families can come down, go kayaking, and have a lunch, there's a happy medium there. And I mean, I've got no skin in the game. I probably won't use it. I'm a lobsterman. You know, I come down there to work. You know, I bring my family down in the afternoon to go out on the boat and stuff like that. But, you know, I just look at all these families and people moving to town, and, you know, part of the reason they moved to this town is because it's so beautiful and they want to be in the harbor, part of the harbor, and there's just really no opportunities. And this might be one of the last ones.
Personally, I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that and Tim pointed out that it's in a FEMA zone that has a lot of restrictions, and there's no previous structures there. So it's something that would have to be looked at carefully if and when the town bought it, and what I think they should have a plan and investigate the restrictions that might exist on that lot before they actually closed a deal on it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom, and I think that's right. There was a structure on there at one point. Now, I don't know whether that has any relevance at this point, but
now that it's gone, I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, but I will follow up and do some investigating on that as well. And Tom, perhaps I'll connect with you and we can discuss some of the issues that have to be addressed.
Be happy to help.
Thank you. By the way, just an aside, I hate to take this time, but Tom, Amy had sent me a email saying she wanted to talk about the harbor in Elm Street. Is she still around?
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
Sounds like she's on another call.
Okay, tell her I just
got her Zoom thing going.
I haven't forgotten her. I'm happy to meet. Okay. Anything else from anyone else that's here? Yeah, George.
Tim, I just want to make sure we review the minutes so we can get them posted.
Okay, before we get to the minutes, let me just say one thing, that the Cohasset Harbor Infrastructure Planning Working Group did sign a support letter for the Elm Street Working Group. And thank you all who did that, from Chip. I have sent out the same letter to the Harbor Committee. We don't have a quorum here, so we can't discuss it. But what I will do for those of you who are here, I'm going to poll each member of the Harbor Committee to see if they would agree to supporting that letter. So Jeff and Barb, you will see that coming. Okay. George, minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I'm just gonna, be very brief, I'm going to share my screen. I think, Tim, I have two sets of minutes. I'm looking for a motion to accept the minutes. In a second, I'll go through them and then we can vote.
Okay, so moved. I moved.
Sorry, you can't vote. You don't have a quorum.
No, this is Chip. We do have a quorum.
Second.
And Mike seconds. Okay.
All right, just briefly going through these. These are from September 30th. And again, somewhat for the benefit of the folks who are joining us today, we are posting these on the Cohasset Harbor page. The town does as a, call it a record of what we've discussed. I'm taking notes today. We'll post these following our next meeting as well. So this is the minutes from September 30th. Tim, I guess, do you want to call a vote for them?
What's that?
Tim, do you want to call a vote to accept these?
Yes. All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, say aye. Tim Davis, aye.
Mike Sardina, aye.
And George Baumgarten, aye. Thank you, George.
All right, one more set, not to bore you on this, but these are the minutes from our November 4th meeting. Similarly, it was a short meeting. We talked about the Captain's Walk survey, so we're seeing results there. And that's the extent of the minutes.
I propose we accept the minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor, Tim Davis, aye.
Mike Sardina, aye.
George Baumgarten, aye. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, does anyone else have any further business to bring before this meeting? If not, I propose we adjourn the meeting. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, George. All in favor? Aye.
I,
Thank you all for joining us. I will be making a report to the select board this evening. I'm going to try to get it in before the State of the Union, but I don't know how things will go tonight. But I am going to make a report on the whole harbor, on all the groups that are working on the harbor tonight at the select board meeting. Thank you all for your interest, and we'll keep you posted on next steps. Thank you, Lauren, for running it.
Thank you, everyone.
Take
Thank
care.
you.